Happy Mushoku Mondays, everybody. Welcome back to yet another trek through the new Mushoku Tensei Jobless Reincarnation novel series. We are on Volume 13, Chapter 3. Had a really fun time last week. I was thankful that everybody else was wanting to see me in a more happier state, doing some slice of life stuff for Mushoku Tensei, because we've been in such a bad area with Volume 12 for so long. But yes, as I kind of told some people here and there, it's like, yeah, I'm happy to have some slice of life stuff again because it's so refreshing, but I hope it doesn't stay in this too long, like last time. Last time, technically, the slice of life stuff went a little bit too long, so to the point where I was like, I need some adventure. But we'll see. We'll see. I might want to keep in the slice of life for a little bit longer than usual, but still, I have to warn people, this might be going back into Andrew the Bumbling Idiot once again, because there's a few sections in here that got me while I was reading through it, but cannot wait to jump into it. But before I do that, I do want to go back to the previous Mushoku Monday. I kind of mentioned my theories around Lenny and Priscilla being afraid of Roxy, and a lot of people brought up a good point. I mean, well, technically, whenever people bring up good points, it typically means that it never gets answered. If there's a lot of people theorizing with me, that typically means that it doesn't get answered. But I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, the good point on the idea that, yes, technically, with the whole situation with the Roxy figurine, and yes, them seeing Rudius's shrine, the Ponsu and everything, did technically instill a bunch of fear into them. The idea behind this is, yes, the Beast Folk, or at least Lenny and Priscilla, take the idea of desecrating somebody else's religious figure to be extremely bad. So when Rudius did confront them about the figurine and the idea that it is his goddess, that made them realize, holy crap, we screwed up. We're so sorry. I mean, it was a big deal. So yes, them technically meeting Roxy in the flesh would sort of create that. But there's a side of me that almost doesn't think that makes any sense. If they see a physical self of Roxy, why would they see her as a deity? Because this is what Rudius sees as a deity. Why would they see it? Unless they connect the idea of what Rudius put them through and the fear of Rudius himself, they would know, treat her like a goddess because he sees her as a goddess. But again, my only thing that kind of stipulates there is it doesn't make much sense why they don't treat Sylphie with equal, or at least comparable, respect. That's the only thing that kind of breaks the idea of it being connected to fear of Rudius himself. It might be strictly the idea of this being a religious figure. But again, they don't worship Roxy. They might see her as a religious figure to Rudius, but that doesn't mean that they worship her as, or treat her as a religious figure. But again, maybe we'll never know. But interesting stuff nonetheless. I think that is a good point. It's a very good point. Again, I still have my theories of smelling that he's connected to Rudius, but why would that not affect with Sylphie? And yes, the idea that they smell some sort of a religious figure. Again, I don't necessarily believe they are fearful of Megurdians, which was my other theory, but that aside, let's jump into Chapter 3, Training with Norn. Let's see if Andrew doesn't cry his eyes out again. This part got me. It got me in so many ways. But yes, another month had passed. Rudius slipped out of bed, not disturbing Sylphie, before getting dressed for training. He wore a lined outfit similar to a sweatsuit before grabbing a stone sword. This sword was heavy and perfect for training his new artificial hand. He thought about naming the sword Tuna, or Swordfish, and that sort of reminded him that he hasn't really had any raw fish in this world. Is this, like, not a thing here? Which I would probably assume it's probably because mostly a lot of the areas that he's traveling in isn't near oceans, and yes, to get raw fish, you need to be pretty close. Before leaving, he patted Sylphie on the head. Adorably, she rubbed her head against his hand. He also gave her underwear-clad bottom a pat. He wondered why she was able to keep her figure so well, even after having children. He kind of figured maybe it's something to do with her genes. I mean, yes, technically, like her grandmother, she's got some good genes there. It felt a little bit too early to have a second child, so he was trying to be a little more restrained with her. Heading to Norn's room, she had her joining in his morning training. At the house when she was visiting, and in the courtyard whenever she was at the dorms. He nearly walked in on her when she was changing. He immediately closed the door. While he did like slim, diminutive girls, she was his sister, and so seeing her didn't really do anything for him. Which was slightly regrettable, but it was for the best. It was nice to be affectionate with them without feeling dirty at the same time. Which again goes back to my previous discussion about the fact that I do like that there's like a block there. I like that at least Rudius can still be perverted everywhere else, but at least he's got a block here, so he never thinks on certain thoughts about his sisters. Still, the thought about Norn being married one day did put uneasiness to his stomach. Perhaps that was what fathers felt whenever they seen their daughters growing up. I like the fact that Rudius is stepping in to be the dad. Reese would have to take Paul's place in berating her first boyfriend. I'm not giving Norn to a bum like you, get lost. I like this. It's like these next two chapters is all about Norn and Aisha and just how Rudius himself is sort of fitting him in the place of where Paul was, which is, yes, partly why a lot of this stuff gets me emotional, but at the same time, it's good stuff. It's good stuff that he's got these basically training wheels to learn about how to treat Lucy as she gets older. He's going to get some experience so that he doesn't have to make all of his mistakes for Lucy. Norn grumbled about him not waiting before a response before entering, because yes, he just kind of knocked on the door and opened it up. It's like, what's the point of even knocking? That's like a Japanese thing, I think. At least it's an anime thing, at least. As she stood in the doorway, he looked past her to see Paul's sword mounted on the wall. In his previous life, she would have set up an altar with a picture, but there weren't any cameras here. He figured that someone in the world probably has a magical implement that can capture an image, but he hasn't seen any, so they're probably not widespread use. Without photographs, people tend to keep mementos to remember who they lost. Norm, would you mind if I came in your room for a second? Huh? Yeah, that's fine, I guess. Her room smelt like the occupant. He figures that he can fill his lung with her scent if he pressed his face against her sheets. Not that he was going to. He still thinks about inappropriate things, he just doesn't act on it, I guess. Standing in front of Paul's sword, he clapped his hands together. Dad, Norn and I are going to be training again this morning. Keep an eye on us so we don't get hurt too badly, will you? He wondered what Paul would say in response to this. You'll never improve without injuries, you know? Or, you better not let Norn get hurt, damn it. Glancing over, he can see Norn kneeling in a Millis style, giving Rudius a view of that cute whirl on the top of her head. It didn't matter what Paul would say, really. He wasn't here anymore. Rudius had to play his role now. A responsibility to take care of Norn to the best of his abilities. She didn't have anyone else to turn to after all. He took what Cliff said to heart, and now he's acting on it. Asking Norn if she was ready, she agreed, and the two of them head out for another session. They did calisthenics, running, and practice swings. While called sword training, it was just the fundamentals. He was driving Norn on building her basic stamina. It was really only about a fifth of his normal training, because he didn't really want to push her too much. She was only 11. While she did her practice swings, he would finish up on his upper body exercises. She never quit halfway. He was proud of her for that. I think at this point, it's easy to say that she's probably trying really hard in order to pretty much become stronger. This is something that she's devoted to, which is nice. It's something that he kind of noted before. This is something that she's passionate about. I want to tap in on this. It was kind of the whole situation when Norn first arrived there. He was afraid that she didn't have something that was unique about her. She felt like she was always being compared to other people. She didn't have like a thing that she wanted to aspire to. And even if she did find something, other people would beat her at it. So this is something that she's finally driven to. She was tougher than she looked. After training, they would head inside and bathe together. She had a habit of falling and getting injured, so he would check her and heal her. Incidentally, Norn strongly objected to letting him see her naked. So she would bathe in underwear and a thin shirt. He figured that she was getting to that sensitive age. It was a pity that she hadn't split the sense of modesty with Aisha. Yeah, because Aisha just goes in there and she has nothing on, while Norn is just kind of coming in clothed. He, of course, wore underwear in order to make Norn feel more comfortable, which is good. Still, he wondered what she would say if he told her that some men get more excited seeing transparent shirts. That's what I thought immediately. I'm like, girl, there's a certain group that likes that. There's several people that I've talked to in the past where at some point it comes to the discussion about censorship and modesty and stuff like that. And it always comes that thing about, if you think about it, what's the point in censoring everything that is too much revealing? Because in actuality, there's a lot of people that get excitement out of, like a nun's outfit. There's people that get excited out of that, and that's literally covering yourself completely up. There's a fetish for everything. He kept that to himself, though, as he was afraid that she'd banish him from bathing with her entirely. A big brother's got to maintain his dignity, too. Midway through, Norn spoke up. It was just running and practice swings today again. When are you going to teach me how to use my sword? I am already. I'm not talking about just swinging it. I mean, you know, the stances, the techniques. He'd been having her run for stamina and swinging for strength. She had to work on those before learning techniques, or at least that's how he figured it. Again, this is Rudius just kind of going based on what Paul told him when he was really young and based on Ghislaine. He doesn't really have, like, a booklet to go through. Plus, the fact that he's pretty much left that behind. Like, he gave up the sword for the longest time. He wasn't getting any better, and that partly was because he couldn't produce a battle aura. Looking her over, she was slender, but growing muscles in her arms and legs over the last month. It was hard to say that she was in shape at this point, but a little exertion probably couldn't cause her any injury. Maybe it was about time to get around to teaching her the most basic stances. I guess you're right. We'll start for real after school today, okay? Really? All right. That evening, Rudius met Norn at the University of Magic's third external training field. Changing into her training wear, Norn's face was deadly serious. They weren't alone as there were few students training nearby, and they had attracted a few spectators. Norn, we're gonna start your real training as a swordswoman today. Yes, sir. She was shining with energy, enthusiasm. It was obvious she was eager. It seems a few months of repetition was wearing her down a little bit. Still, swinging a sword around battle wasn't a game. You had to have the fundamentals. There's a lot to unpack in the idea of that step process. I do actually appreciate how Rudius is sort of being very piecemealing of this. Now, I will say that there's a lot of trainers that would probably be against the idea of accepting who they're training to dictate when they start the real training. But that sort of gives credit to Rudius. Everything that he's doing is by her choice. She wanted to do this training, so he started training her. She wanted to go to the next step, so he's letting her. And it sort of goes to the conversation later on when he talks to the fan club about how, no, this is what Norn wanted. But he's being very safe here, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that he really does care for Norn. He doesn't want her to get hurt. And yes, as a part of that he doesn't want to let his father down. If he got Norn hurt, he wouldn't be able to face Paul. But this is also a territory he's not used to. This is something he's never done before. Yes, he had Paul training him. Yes, he had Ghislaine training him. And he did sparring matches with Edis. But he's not an expert here. So he's got to take those steps very carefully. And yes, there's no indication here yet that Norn has produced a battle aura. Just so you know, I'm planning to be rough with you. All right. If we keep at it, you might just end up upset with me. You might even start to think I hate you. That's how harsh it's going to be. All right, to be honest, I don't want to make you hate me, but a half-hearted instructor gets his students hurt. If I took it too easy on you in training, and then you ended up in a battle and getting killed on your first real fight, I'd never be able to face Dad in heaven. Norn had no real talent in the sword, certainly not compared to Edis at her age. He wouldn't say that she was the worst of your average 11-year-old, but strength can only be measured in relative terms. When fighting one-on-one, the stronger combatant wins. Weaker one dies. Losing isn't a valid option. For Norn to overcome actual threats, she needed to put in a lot of effort. He had to train her hard, and she needed to learn a few tricks too. Again, I like that. I like that mindset of it's not just the fact of hurting her while training, but getting her the skills equipped for when something actually does happen, she can actually stand her own. There's no point in showing somebody how to use a weapon falsely. Because the moment that something comes up, they're going to think that they can achieve something they can't actually pull off. And they're just going to get themselves killed rather than retreating. I think that's sort of the mindset that he has here. If I'm going to train her, she needs to be equipped to be able to fight one-on-one with somebody. She has to be the better person. Now, yes, to clarify it, it's not just the stronger combatant wins. Some cases, it's the more skilled. The one that has the most tools at their disposal. Just like with what's happening with the Sword God right now and Edis. Wants her to learn everything, basically. Every school. At some point, this might start making you miserable. You might get frustrated with your lack of progress. You might even see someone more talented quickly pass you by. There's gonna come a day where you feel like quitting. That totally sounded like some little personal experience there for Rudius. You might get frustrated at your lack of progress. You might see somebody more talented quickly pass you. Edis was way far beyond him. He couldn't keep up with her. And he gave up really quickly, honestly. But it also goes back to the point of Norn. Why does Norn feel so upset? What broke Norn? This idea that everything I try, Aisha was better. Rudius was better. Everybody's better than me. I'm not going to start this if you're going to see that somebody's going to progress faster than you and you stop. You need to understand that there's going to be people better than you. You have to understand that there's going to be people that progress better than you. It doesn't mean that your progress is any less significant. I do know how that feels, for the record. And I couldn't really blame you or anyone else for giving up in the face of adversity. Norn scowled at that. From her perspective, it probably looked like he was supremely talented at anything. And in this body, he was very capable of all sorts of things. But even so, he'd lost so many battles. More than one, he'd nearly died. In a sense, Paul died because he wasn't strong enough. He wanted more than anything to keep Norn safe from that sort of danger. Don't make the same mistake I did, I think. All right there. Now starts, and I'm already feeling it. I'm already feeling it. The Paul conversations. This whole chapter really is Paul and Rudius, and now Rudius and Norn. That said, I don't want you to give up on the sword, no matter what. If you do, I'll never teach it to you again, and I'll never let you use Dad's sword. I think she's gonna run off with it if you do that. As long as you keep at it, though, I won't give up on you either. Ryus knew this was cheesy. He wondered if he even showed that kind of determination himself. He gave up on the sword, but kept on his training. He wasn't a total hypocrite. It's like, don't give up on this, Norn. I'll never teach you again. He gave up. Do you understand, Norn? Yes, sir. I completely understand. She was quick and forceful in response, looking at him with flustered cheeks and determination in her eyes. He wondered if he looked like this to Paul back when he was little. The parallel. Again, it's the parallel. Maybe Norn would end up following a similar path, leaving him behind to find another master to train her. Ryus didn't really necessarily leave Paul to go train to find another master. He left Paul because he needed to get money in order to go to the university. But I could see how he sees that. I could see how he could see that from Paul's perspective, it might have been a little bit bummer that Ghislaine was basically taking over for him. And yes, that picture. That picture. Oh gosh. She looks, it was so funny because for those who don't know, as I'm reading through the series, I copy the entire chapter into a document and then I start breaking it down. So I don't copy the images. I get the images from Adrian and Earthly. And so yes, when I got to this part, I'm like, I need that picture now. Give me the picture now. I was going to jump into the PDF if I had to. Ugh. Ganbare Norn. Once he was at beginner level, he could send her to Ghislaine or something, assuming he could find out where she was at. She's pretty close. The Sword Sanctum was off to the west. If he offered enough money, he could lure a Sword Saint away to teach her for a little while. They're already flagging this. Mark my words. Norn's going to need more training, and he's going to send to the Sword Sanctum, and then Ghislaine and Edis is going to show up. Mark my words. This just opened that door like, I wonder if I can lure some Sword Saints out from the Sword Sanctum. I wonder who's over there. Where's Ghislaine at? It's just kind of cheesy in that regard. But it makes sense. Glad to hear it. We'll start off with some running then. Huh? Aren't we going to train with a sword tonight? Yeah, of course. You're going to be running with your sword in your hands this time. You have to be able to carry it around everywhere on the battlefield after all. She didn't reply. I'm waiting for a reply. Sir, yes, sir. And that was one of those, all right, let's start your training. Here's the serious training. But aren't we going to be training? We're going to be training. Do you still want to do this? It's like, there's going to be no complaining. I was like, yeah, okay, I got it. They ran, reviewed 3 basic forms, and had a brief sparring session. His intent was to give her a hard time. She needed to understand that it could be painful and scary. While he didn't feel that pain was essential to learning, he felt it was best for her to realize how tough it could be. There was a chance he'd make her cry, and a chance that she'd hate his guts after the night. He needed to turn his heart to stone. This wasn't a hobby. Again, it's a good thing. There's no point in getting into this whole situation. The moment that she finally gets struck, she goes, oh gosh, this hurts. I don't want to do this anymore, starts crying. That you're not going to continue. You might as well stop now. If she treated it like a hobby, that was a surefire way to end up dead when you face an actual threat. As the sun set, he called for the completion of their training. Norn collapsed on the ground, gasping for air. I want you to practice these 3 basic forms I taught you today when you have free time. In the morning, at lunchtime, whenever. Even when I'm not around. Yes, sir. Things had gone decently. After running, he had gone into reviewing the basic forms or movements. Then sparring, correcting her stance and foot movements. While it wasn't strict like kendo in Japan, this world didn't have any rules for swordsmen. Learning how to fight with a sword mostly came down to a lot of practice. Paul had started smacking him around early in their sessions. Ghislaine had spent a great deal of time sparring with Edis too. He felt like he had the right general idea. There is a side of me that kind of thinks it's a little bit reckless, the idea of going through all this training and this going, well, I guess the basic idea is just to keep swinging the sword. Like, he doesn't really know what he's doing, but again, Norn wanted this. And Ryus really only knows based on his experiences. What Paul did with him. Norn seemed reluctant to swing a sword at somebody, even if it was wooden. So he started off by letting her swing at him freely to help her get over that. He didn't defend himself apart from moving so they didn't hurt him. She grimaced every time her sword hit home. But he tried hard to keep calm with a composed look on his face. He wanted her to believe that he could take her hits just fine. Again, yes, technically if he's going to get that point where she's going to hit something with that sword, she's got to get rid of that flinching that happens. She's got to be able to follow through with it. And yes, if he keeps wincing, she's going to pull back on it. And it's not going to help her when she actually gets in combat. What she needs is bodyguardi. Here, just take this sword right here and just go at it, because he's not going to get hurt. It seemed to work, since she spent the last several months practicing swinging. Her strikes had a decent amount of force behind them, probably leaving him some nasty bruises. He wrapped things up with some sparring, where he smacked Norn around with his sword for a while. He took it easy on her, but she probably got some bruises. In other words, he was doing harm to his dear, sweet little sister. A part of him wondered if that was the right choice. Still, she kept swinging to the bitter end, not surrendering, complaining, or breaking down in tears. Again, I think this is something that's extremely important for Norn. I really do hope to get a perspective of Norn at some point. I know that her initial driving force, way back when Rudeus left for the Greyrat continent, was that she wasn't able to do anything. So yes, I can see there being a sense that she wants to find something that she can do to help. But Paul doesn't need help anymore. Zenith doesn't need help anymore. Her family doesn't need that help anymore. So all I can think of is it's maybe an aspect that she wants to continue on in Paul's legacy, take his sword and continue on, or the aspect that she never wants to face that situation ever again. Because I couldn't help, Dad died. So now I want to get myself in a position that if this ever happens again, I can be there. I can be at Rudeus' side. I can help Rudeus. I can save Rudeus. She wants to get that point where she never has to rely on somebody else ever again. Now, the question mark is, and even at this age, can she achieve that point? Can she get that strong? That's the question mark. I'm not sure how soon Edda started training. I know that she's always been violent. She's always been violent, and they pretty much got Ghislaine to train her. But how long was Ghislaine training her is the question mark. But there is a side of this whole aspect of how much she's sticking with it. That's just fantastic. I think for me, it warms my heart more in the idea that she's finding a purpose. She's finding something that she wants. She's found a driving force. She's passionate about this. Yes, the writing, I think, is another thing that she's passionate about. But this equally is that she's super passionate about this. When he inquired, she agreed that it hurt, but she didn't want to quit. With everything wrapped up, he went to heal her bruises. He'd have Sylphie pretty much handle with everything else that was covered up. But with her staying with them that night, he figured that he could check her in the bath. Just as he went to remove her jacket, he sensed someone watching nearby. Turning, he seen a small group of males staring at them. He figured they were just onlookers, or some people that were just loitering around. Or maybe they possibly wanted something from him. Oh, you foolish boy. We all know why they're standing there. We don't even have to read on and we know exactly why they're there. He cast a few heals on her before sending her to go get changed. Once she was in the changing room, he confronted the boys. As he drew near, he realized there was 10 of them. None of them looked like popular kind, which was good. Maybe they could understand each other. Like he figures like, well, if I walk up to him and there was like some popular boys, he wouldn't be able to engage with them very well, but he figures because he was unpopular before, he can relate with the dudes. They were staring with hostility in their eyes. Meeting him in their eyes, a few looked away awkwardly. Do you need something, guys? They looked at each other, whispering, pushing each other in the back. Eventually, one of them stepped forward. He was about 18 years old, about as tall as Rudeus, but looked gangly and out of shape. His cheeks were bony, eyes were kind of shifty. A classic magician type. With a pair of glasses, he might look like Zenoba. he suddenly speaks of, Master, we are watching Norn. Of course, Zenoba was always full of that bizarre confidence of his. These guys look more like the self-loathing, resentful type. He spat out with a glare. Why are you bullying Norn? He could feel his brow furrowing at the sound of that word. That is the last thing you want to tell Rudeus, is that you're bullying. Bullying is not the word that he wants to hear. He almost slipped into being the bully of the campus. Let's not forget that. All the crap that he did to Linnea and Priscilla, walking around the campus like a king and having everybody afraid of him. While the guy flinched at Rudeus' reaction, he continued. Look, I know Norn is clumsy and messes things up sometimes. Maybe she accidentally ticked you off somehow, but she tries her best at everything she does, okay? Do you really have to take it out on her like that? From behind him, the group muttered words of agreement. In the first place, Norn's never even held a sword before. She didn't even know how to defend herself. I don't know what she did, but making her fight you is just too harsh. You don't know her very well if you don't know that she's been swinging a sword for months now. Apparently you don't know much about Norn. What a fan club you are. I hate situations like this, by the way. I hate when somebody takes what you're doing and misinterprets it as doing something else. It frustrates the hell out of me. This is like, literally when somebody pegs you as something that you're not, and you're already in defensive mode in a conversation. For me personally, it always feels like I just want to walk away. Like if I'm already defending myself, I'm walking away. Because it's just going to be one of those arguments where you're just constantly having to climb up this hill that's constantly rolling back on you. Well, you see, I know you're the strongest mage in the entire school, but if you're going to mistreat Norn like that, we're still going to fight you for her sake. He was worked up, with determination in his voice. But the chorus of approvals from his friends got quieter this time. I like that. Oh, they're like, wait. In fact, Rudeus heard one of them mutter that they didn't agree to that. Like, yeah. Wait, what? No, we're not going to fight him. We're just here to growl at him and tell him to stop. If you can't put your actions with your mouth don't even bring it up. It was sad, but guys like this weren't particularly tough, even in groups. At this point, Rudius realized that he needed to figure out something before he explained himself. Okay, can I ask who your people are exactly? The guy in the front looked back at his friends for guidance. After a moment, he looked at Rudius awkwardly. What do you mean exactly? I mean, how do you guys know my little sister? Are you her friends or something? No, we just noticed her last year, when she was a freshman. She always, does her best at everything, so we're kind of rooting for her, I guess. The guy was stammering, but his friend spoke up. I noticed her on the campus 6 months ago. I'm the same year as Norn. So we had practice lessons together, and she kept messing up with her fire spell over and over, but I saw her all teary-eyed while the instructor scolded her during magic practice, and they all spoke clumsily and never really finished their sentences. But Rudius got the gist of it. They had been watching her in classes as she teared up and failed repeatedly, but kept struggling nonetheless. It had warmed their hearts, and they banded together to offer her solid support. In other words, Norn had a fan club. Again, we knew about this a long time ago, and Rudius forgets. A lot has happened. A lot has happened. Now that he thought about it, Sylphie had mentioned something about it. It made sense. Norn was adorable after all. He could see where they were coming from. As Norn's brother, he wanted to encourage their efforts. I think I understand the situation now. Thanks for looking after Norn, everyone. I'm Rudius Greyrat, her big brother. Lowering his head, a surprised murmur ran through the group. They were on Norn's side, some capable of taking things too far, but as a group, they seemed to have good intentions. It was right to treat them with respect. As for our training just now, I know it looked like I was treating her harshly. However, learning the sword isn't a game. It could be a matter of life and death. He then ran through the details about how it was Norn's idea, how dangerous it was, and how much harder Norn had to work in order to compare to others. They were taken aback, but it seemed like they understand where he was coming from. Still, some muttered how he hit her too hard. How hard is too hard? How hard is too hard? You want to give me an example of how hard is too hard? Plus, it's a bunch of mages. I'm not sure if any of them actually have held a sword. Further in explaining his motivations, they grew more serious. In the end, slowly nodding reluctantly. They were young by this world's standards, but they were still adults. They were capable of understanding how deadly serious real battle was. Rudius, is something the matter? Norn arrived wearing something like a poncho over her standard uniform. Oh, it's Norn! Hello, Norn! You look cute today as always. Nice job out there, Norn. The instant she arrived, everyone got remarkably creepy. There's a side of me that thinks like he'd go, oh yeah, you're right, she is super cute. But no, that's like, he's like, oh gosh, guys, stop. Like, stop being creepy, dude. But Rudius knew how they felt. She was adorable in that outfit. So adorable that he pictured her carrying around a leaf umbrella. Hello everyone, thank you. She flinched in surprise at the barrage of encouragement. Bowing her head, Rudius noticed that she wasn't getting too close to them. She seemed to be picking up the weird vibes. She's like, yeah, thank you. All right, cool. Please don't find me in a back alley. We're all thinking it. Oh, it's so crappy that is so creepy. It's like it's kind. It makes sense. It's heartwarming, but at the same time, I love how Rudius addresses this. He literally puts the idol fan label on them and tries to construct it into something that won't be creepy, hopefully. It's still gonna be creepy, but it's not gonna be dangerous, because it can always become dangerous. Rudius, I think I forgot something in my room. I'll go grab it now. So just wait for me at the school gates, okay? Just like that, Norn turned and rushed off to the dorms. Before she got too far, though, she tripped and fell. So moe. She's the moe trope in this series. Is Norn going to become the moe trope in the Mushoku Tensei series? Because we don't have a moe character yet. She could totally become I guess technically not. Aisha has a little bit of moe in her, but yeah, moe. Totally moe. Norn slowly got up, looked back at Rudius with her eyes glistening. He suppressed a sigh, thinking how she shouldn't be running after she just got done exercising. Ah, she's so adorable. Don't run so fast, Norn. You're wearing a skirt, remember? Okay. Stop. You guys are ruining my image of you guys. I was gonna root for you guys. Rudius was gonna root for you guys. I thought the school uniform was a stupid idea at first, but I think I understand the appeal now. She's an awfully slow runner, though. Yeah, if a kidnapper tried to snatch her, she might not be able to get away. If Norn went to a slave market, I'd buy her in a minute. Oh, imagine living with Norn. Rudius thought, yeah, I'd buy her too. Take her home, feed her a big meal, insist that she clean off her plate. Oh, he could just see her struggling to finish it. God, wait, no. He's getting caught up in it. He's getting caught up in the idol group. Creeper. She is cute, though, so I can't blame him. Norn was his little sister. If anyone dared kidnap her, he'd murder them. Sound good, Dad? Don't get mad at me. Rias cleared his throat loudly, prompting the group to snap out of it. Guys, I need to stop talking about enslaving my little sister. Sorry. It's all right. I know she's adorable. You can have your little daydreaming at least, as long as you keep a safe distance from her. Everyone seemed a little relaxed by that. But yeah, if you lay so much of a finger on her, you're going to seriously regret it. You will regret it. Rias is turning into the man god. You will regret it. Don't touch her. You will regret it. It never hurt to be clear about these things. While none of them seemed capable of getting into real mischief, and groups like this tended to have a moderation effect on its members, you never knew what one might do on impulse. The last thing he wanted was for one of them to get overheated and try to snatch her off the streets. Again, this is where he's connecting this with pretty much like idol fandom. This idea that they pretty much moderate each other. They set their own rules. They keep each other in check, basically. On another note, what rules has your club agreed on so far? Our club? Yeah, this is a Norn fan club, right? What's your policy on interacting with her? It was important to have clear, set guidelines. Generally, fans agreed on not approaching idols directly. Some agreed to only handshakes and autographs. But even handshakes were dicey, as some put weird stuff on their hands, like gum or sea urchins. Now this part kind of got me a little bit. Like, I'm thinking, a sea urchin? I'm wondering if they're meaning sea cucumbers, which might imply something else, which, you know. I have heard of cases of, yes, idol fans putting certain liquids on their hands from their body and doing handshakes because it makes them feel like they got that with the idol. And it's a disgusting thing, but it is a thing. So I don't know what the sea urchin would be. Sea urchins are typically prickly, and I don't know, they could probably put something that's pokey in their hand to produce blood from the idol. That's the only thing I think makes sense here. Either that or the translator missed the reference to sea cucumbers. I don't know. He wanted to make sure that kind of thing was officially forbidden. However, they didn't seem to know what a fan club was. They didn't even have anybody in charge of the group. It wasn't even formed by any one particular person. They were just kind of naturally drawn to each other in this shared appreciation for her cuteness. Some of them didn't even know each other's names. This was a very dangerous situation. It was an unorganized mob of an uncertain size, united by only the interest of his little sister. Yeah, again, I like this kind of comparison. Yes, the idea of idol fans is creepy to some people, but the idea behind the fandom itself can technically create positive things without some sort of self-moderation happening with a large group of people. I mean, think about it. If a very popular idol goes on a stage on the side of a street, what's to keep all of these guys from rushing up there and touching the thing that they literally think about all night? These people are rabid fans of this one girl standing on the stage. What keeps them from diving onto that stage and grabbing her and running off and kidnapping her? It's this mutual respect, this moderation that they cause to each other. If this guy next to me that loves her just as much as I do gets anywhere past this boundary, I will tackle him because I want to protect her. They moderate each other. Without that sort of understanding amongst fans, it's just a bunch of stalkers waiting to see who's the first one to jump. And if you don't have that sort of camaraderie, you almost compete with each other. And the competing with each other is the dangerous thing, because one person is going to be the one that gets too heated and takes the first jump. If I don't jump, they'll jump. And I don't want them to get her. Again, it's a fascinating aspect of the idol industry. A really easy way to kind of see how this works is to watch something like if my favorite pop idol made it to Budokan. That show was a really good way of showing you how, despite the fact that these people are thirsty as hell and love and devote everything, every paycheck they have into this one girl, they still know boundaries. They still create boundaries. Even when they're alone, they respect that boundary. I'm alone on the train with this person that I'm literally giving every paycheck to, buying every album she has, but I won't confront her. That's off limits. That is a no-no. That is an unspoken rule amongst us. And that's what he's sort of creating here. He acknowledges that right now, these 10 boys standing in front of me are all basically stalkers that are standing next to each other. That's all they are right now. They just like her cuteness, but they're not organized and they're not controlling each other. So in a sense, they're just a bunch of stalkers that normally would be all peeking from behind a building, all comfortable enough to be out in the open, enough to stand next to each other. But how long until one of them steps out of line and the others don't stop him. He needed to create that organization. That's what he's doing right here. It's dumb, but it makes perfect sense. It's dumb, but it makes perfect sense. They were united only by the interest of his little sister. In mobs, people were capable of doing things that they wouldn't have the guts to try on their own. That's the other aspect. Because it's a group of stalkers that aren't controlling each other, it's just like a riot. When a riot happens, people do things that they normally wouldn't do because they feel empowered by the group. The power encourages them to do things. And additionally, they feel like because they're in a group, they're unstoppable. Because if some authority comes, they won't be able to stop them all. For example, kidnapping his adorable little sister and blaming her for being too cute to resist. It was unacceptable, outrageous, and scandalous. And yes, that is the mindset of a lot of massive fans. It's because you're so cute. I have to do this. It's because you asked me to. The way that you looked at me and said that you were mine, you like me. Because you sung that song, it was about me. It's a dangerous area to be in. And that's technically what idols feed off of, and that's the unfortunate aspect of it. They feed off that parasocial relationship. They want that because then you'll buy everything for them. You gotta support them. It's like you're the sugar daddy. You gotta pay him for them. You gotta keep them on the stage. This isn't good, guys. At this rate, you're gonna turn to a bunch of criminals. Criminals? No, Sorry, but I know I'm right about this. One of you is gonna cross the line eventually. Don't be ridiculous. None of us would ever lay a hand on Norn. I mean, we like Norn a lot, but it's more like she's our little sister or something. Rias thought, say what, punk? She's my little sister, and I'm not sharing her. Get your own damn little sister. He had to stay on topic, though. I believe you guys mean well, but I think we need to set some clear rules here. To stay in control, they needed regulations. With rules in place, they can keep an eye on each other. Rules that arise naturally with time, coming into existence when they're needed and fade when not. Their club didn't have much history yet, and not enough time to develop rules organically. Until they created rules, Norn was in danger. He needed to speed up the process artificially. He wouldn't wait around for them to hurt her first. It was simple enough. They needed to promise not to scare Norn or put her at risk. He just needed to find someone to actually propose those rules. While typically that was the leader that did that, they didn't have one. The guy that stepped forward to challenge him was most likely the most strong-willed, but he wasn't the right choice. The leader had to understand the responsibility they were taking on, accept it willingly. Randomly dropping power onto someone's lap was never a good idea. Who understand the gravity of the situation the most? Cared most deeply about Norn's well-being? Rudius, obviously. Rudius is gonna lead the fan club. Rudius is gonna lead the fan club. How embarrassing is that? At someday, Norn's gonna be come busting into his house and be like, Rudius, where are you? Rudy, where are you? She buffs in there and he's like, I'm right here, what's going on? That's extremely embarrassing. You're the leader of a fan club for me? You sick, perverted. I can see it. I know it's gonna happen. Norn was his sister, his own flesh and blood. In other words, he was the lawgiver here. In the year 425 of the Armored Dragon era, an organization was founded in the Renoa University of Magic. Its name, the Norn Greyrat Official Fan Club. Boasting 30 members in total, it would go on to leave an indelible mark on the history of the university. The name of the first president was lost in history. So that means that technically, eventually, he's going to pass it off to somebody. I don't know. And yes, Legends of the University number 3. The boss can summon 30 flunkies with a single word. And we all know what that word is. Norn! And suddenly everybody rushes in. Too good. Too good. I handled that chapter a lot better than I did. I think because I condensed a bit of it. And again, I think I got all the emotion out of my system before. But yes, this chapter was extremely emotional for me, just based on the idea of what I mentioned earlier. This idea of Rias essentially taking that position as Paul. Paul's no longer here. I need to step in as their father. I need to step in as Aisha and Norn's father. And now Norn needs somebody to essentially give her the strength that she needs to defend herself and maybe in the future fight. And Paul's not here to do that. He can't really give it to anybody else to handle, at least the current moment. He's, like I said, he's planning on having somebody else possibly continue her training. But for now, it's him. And just kind of, the thing that I couldn't get out of my head the entire time is as I'm envisioning Rudius training Norn, pushing her, pushing her and not letting up, all I can think of the entire time was Paul pushing Rudius over and over again, not letting up. Paul wanted so badly for Rudius to take up the sword just like he did. That was what they kind of talked about a long time ago. If we have a son, we're going to train him in swords. If we have a daughter, we'll train him in magic. And Rudius picked up the book really quickly, but Paul still wanted him to learn the sword, so he's learning both of it. So this essentially is Rudius becoming Paul for Norn. And yes, that determination in Norn to essentially, in a sense, follow in his father's footsteps. I would imagine that if time could have progressed over time, if the displacement incident never happened, I figured at some point Norn could have possibly wanted her father to train her. Now, there's a side of me that believes that wouldn't be the case, because I think a part of what makes Norn want to pick up the sword so much is because Paul impressioned on her. Which, yes, was technically what Paul wanted. Paul wanted to become the greatest person in Norn's life. That's what he dreamed of. And yes, that technically did happen. Because they got displaced together and Paul was all she had, she became so attached to him. It makes me wonder that if Zenith was present that entire time she was growing up, if possibly that wouldn't be the case. Then maybe she would want to become a healer, like Zenith. But again, that all didn't happen. And now Rudius has to step up and be in the place where Paul was, or Paul should be. And like I said, reading that got me so turned up because I couldn't stop thinking about that. Anyways, Chapter 4. Can I keep him? Can I keep him? It's the Groot chapter. It's the damn Groot chapter. I got a huge kick out of this chapter. I was sobbing for chapter 3, and I got a huge kick out of chapter 4. Let's talk about Aisha for a moment. Always good for talking about Aisha. She was doing well, despite tragedies befalling her family. She was bright and energetic as always. Rudius never caught her gazing out the window with a sad expression like her mother. I knew it. I knew she was hurting. I knew Lily was hurting. And again, I think there's a side of that is Paul. For sure, a side of that is massively Paul. But I think there's also a side of it of Zenith. I think in both situations, this is two things compounding on her. And I keep wondering, when is Lily going to finally open up with that? When is Lily going to finally break down? This is sort of getting a little hint of that. And I wish I want a segment where he actually goes and confronts her and says, you know, let me hear you. I mean, you need to, again, like I've said before, there's sometimes you just have to tell somebody. You have to let it out. There's a freedom and a healing that happens when you let it out. Like Rudius, when he first told Roxy about the fact that he's from another world, he felt like something was oozing out of his heart. Like, finally this thing is releasing from me. This pent-up anxiety and inability to tell anybody. It feels so rewarding. It feels so freeing to actually get that out. Lilia needs that, I think. Lilia needs that. Aisha didn't bite her lip when she seen Paul's sword like Norn. She did her housework cheerfully, as if nothing changed. Which, yes, similar to Lilia, I'm wondering if there's something in Aisha. Now, granted, I don't know that Aisha has any connection whatsoever to Paul or Zenith. I'd imagine probably very little connection to Zenith. Again, she was supposed to be Zenith's servant. Zenith is my master. That's what Lilia pounded in her head. That's your master. And it was the same with Paul. That's your master. That's your master. That's your master. That's not your father. Even when Paul wanted to connect to Aisha, he wanted to spoil Aisha too. Wanted to take Aisha out and stuff. And Lilia said, no, I'm going to raise this child how I want to, and growled at him to the point where he's like, okay, all right, I'm sorry, I won't touch her. That's the sad thing. I don't see her having that much of a connection to either one of them. That's the sad thing. She has the only thing that she has connection to. Lilia and Rudius. That's all she cares about. So I could see her having some sort of relationship, even if not directly with the two of them, but I don't think that's going to affect Aisha. If anything, what's going to be affecting her right now is the fact that she knows that her mother's probably hurting. But she's perfectly happy right now. Everything she loves is in that house with her right now. And so sadly, no, she's not going to be affected by any of this. At least directly. During the day, she tended the flowers in the garden and her room. At night, she was taught magic by Rudius, cuddling up happily with them. It seemed like she was more energetic than before. The single least melancholy of the house. Which, yes, technically I do see as a warning sign. There's always a warning sign in somebody that is not showing signs of being sad. If there was an actual connection that Aisha had with Paul and Zenith, she could be hiding it with happiness. That's the biggest warning sign. If you've seen somebody that's gone through something tragic or is dealing with some sort of hardship, and they're constantly making jokes and they're constantly smiling and they're constantly being positive, that is the biggest, massive warning sign. I've done it myself. I've had these times where I just want to be positive in front of people. I just want to laugh. And there's a side of it that you want to block it with happiness. You think the best way that you can overcome this hardship is if I smile. If I can crack a joke and somebody laughs and we all laugh together, that feels like a remedy. Because laughter is a good way of healing. Laughter is a medicine in itself. But if you never show anything but that, that's a warning sign. That is a warning sign that you need to open up. And if you see somebody like that, it's a warning sign that you need to have them open up. Shoot, Robin Williams is a prime example of this. The happiest, goofiest person ever, and he was hurting. Everybody thought they were life of the party. They were so funny, and every time they're on screen, they're making jokes. And they were the most hurting, because that's how they thought they could cover it up. I always do this. Do that again. Rudeus felt like she wasn't mourning Paul at all. It made Rudeus wonder if he didn't mean that much to her. Again, I kind of agreed this. I don't think that there was much connection there. Norn didn't remember much of her time in Buena Village. That was a question mark that I had, because we were talking about that a couple chapters ago, this idea that Norn doesn't really have a connection to Zenith. And there was a few people that were saying, no, she remembers plenty of it. No, right here, it's even stating that she doesn't seem to remember much of it, which again is that connection with Zenith. If she didn't have that connection, then how is she going to handle Zenith now? I think she still sees her as a mother, though. Don't get me wrong. It was possible that Aisha didn't have many memories of Paul or Zenith either. Most of her life was with Lilia. It wasn't really fair for him to expect her to act all gloomy. Yeah, he can't blame her because he did the same thing with Paul. He never connected with Paul. He chose specifically not to get that connected with him until, unfortunately, it was too late. Now, yes, again, I do feel that he connected a lot with Paul back in Milshin, but not enough. Not as a father. So yes, he's not going to go, my gosh, Aisha, you should have connected better with him. I was the same way. Maybe Aisha reuniting with Lilia overweighed the sadness of Paul's death. If so, it was probably for the best. It wasn't like he wanted her to mope around rather than enjoying life. Which, yes, I think is positive, as long as she's not hurting inside. One day, Rudeus had no classes or anything in particular to do. Roxy and Sylphie both were at work. He was planning on looking after Lucy and relax instead. While he felt guilty lazing around, adults needed time to rest too. He wondered about the fact that he wasn't bringing any money, especially since he had a child now, but he figured that his education would provide money later, so it was fine. Plus, you also have a bit of money saved up, and plenty of things in the back of your pocket to make money. Let's not forget that either. I'm currently making that list, by the way. After checking in on Lucy, he went out to the garden. Once a barren patch of earth, it was now transformed completely. There was 3 evergreen trees, one blooming in spring, one in summer, and one in autumn. Aisha had apparently placed a request with the Adventure Guild to get them moved from a nearby forest. While costly, it seems Zenova helped him out. So she only had to cover the cost for a few bodyguards. There's Zenova again. I love Zenova. He's such a good bro. Which makes you wonder how that conversation happened. Did she go to Zenova knowing that he had the money? And hey, you want to help Rudeus out with something? I'm making some trees. Oh yes, sure. How much money do you need? Or in an aspect that he wanted to do something for him, and she's like, well, I have an idea. It's probably the first. Aisha knows how to pull strings. Beyond a brick divider was a dry patch with the rice seeds. Both Rudeus and Aisha didn't know how to grow them, but it was sprouting nicely. Currently, Aisha was squatted near a small field, with Aisha sitting next to her. He called out to them. What are you two doing? Oh, hi, Rudeus. We're weeding the rice. He thought that she was joking, but yes, sure enough, they were pulling weeds from between the stalks. Zenith quietly helping out. Now that Rudeus thought about it, he remembered Zenith pulling weeds back in Buena Village. Yeah. Miss Zenith wanted to help out too. The way that Aisha was addressing Zenith didn't really sit right with him. Aisha, you can call her mom, you know that, right? Nah, Mother Lilia said that I can't. She always says that I have to call her Miss Zenith or Madam. Again, that's why she's never connected to her. She's always been Miss Zenith. Madam, not Mom. This was another of Lilia's commandments. She was sure strict about this kind of thing. Aisha didn't seem to think of her as a mother anyhow. Zenith did treat her just like one of her own children, but Aisha obviously couldn't remember that. It wasn't a big deal either way. I don't necessarily think this is. I do believe that Aisha should see Paul as a father. That's important, for sure. There shouldn't have been any reason for Aisha not to see Paul as her father. But yes, technically with Zenith, I would want her to see her as a stepmother, and not that she should see her as her blood mother. Even though, yes, she drank from Zenith. Zenith breastfed her, took care of her as her child when Lilia wasn't around. But to be seen as Madam, as Miss Zenith, that hurts me personally. I think she should see her as family, just like Lilia should see them as family. But unfortunately, that's Lilia. That's her mindset. It keeps translating as Mother Zenith, and I hate Mother Zenith. So I'm just gonna say Zenith. How long has Zenith been helping out like this? For a while now, actually. Mother tried to stop her at first, but she always comes out here to help when I start messing around with the garden. She's better at it than I am. Zenith had put a lot of effort into maintaining their garden in Buena Village. Maybe it had something to do with this. Rudius wasn't going to discourage it. It may help her regain her memories. Yeah, technically doing tasks and stuff that you're familiar with could actually help that. It's sort of like, I have this part is erased that connects to this part, but as you do things that are kind of similar to that, it almost like it pieces it together. You're just trying to make a connection to this thing over here, really, is what it is. Because it's been sort of severed. It's still there, you just haven't figured out how it connects to everything. There is a side of me that wonders if Zenith is out there gardening, not because this is something that she did previously in Buena Village, that this is sort of a, oh, obviously I'm going to do this. As we'll kind of find out with the coming chapters, it really does feel more like an idea that there's something happening here, I want to be a part of it. And that's a completely different thing than just sort of doing things because it's the motions. I needed to go do this because Lilia told me that I need to go use the restroom. So I'm going to go do the restroom. I can do it by myself, but I have to have her tell me. It's sort of what I talked about before, where there is an aspect of a lot of this stuff where they don't really have their own choice. They don't make decisions based on their own actions. I've had it where you sort of tell them, okay, do this, and they do it because it's in front of them, and it was told to do that what's in front of them. They never think, well, no, I want to go do this instead. It's almost like they don't have a free will in a sense. They just kind of go through the motions of what's put in front of them. But this, along with something that's mentioned later on, is that sign that when this is happening, Zenith wants to be a part of it, which is a massive thing. Which tells me, again, it's not an aspect of Lilia's walking with Zenith and says, hey, Zenith, go help Aisha. She's literally she didn't want Zenith to go do that. And that's below her. Madam shouldn't be in the garden. That's for us, the maids, to handle. She didn't want Zenith to do that. But I think Zenith wanted to do it, not because this is her garden in Buena Village, which, yes, could be a part of it. This is something that she remembers, but more so that she wanted to do something with Aisha. Aisha's out there doing something, and I know how to do that. Let me help her out, which is a great thing. It is an absolutely fantastic thing that she wants to make that connection with Aisha. Aisha's family. And I want to help her with this. I want to do something with Aisha. Not that I want to weed. I want to do something with Aisha. Later on, it's, my son is with her daughter. I want to be there with her. I want to be there. I want to be there with my son. It sucks. It sucks so much. I wish I could have that too. Oh, there's an aspect of all this stuff that's almost a jealousy thing. Like you almost wish things went as well for you as it does for others. It's a crappy feeling. It's not a feeling of not wanting happiness for other people. And granted, yes, technically this is it's a novel. It's a fiction. Just you wish things played out a little bit better for you than it does somebody else is an inescapable feeling. And that's something I'm happy in this story that there is a positive coming out of Zenith's situation and for Rudius and the family. But it sucks that it couldn't work as better for you. It was also nice seeing Aisha and her sitting side by side like this. They looked content in each other's company. Even if they weren't blood related, she was still a daughter to Zenith. Even if Aisha won't see her as a mom, Zenith will see her as a daughter. Aisha then asked if Rudius had the day off. Cheeks smudged with dirt. She had something to show him in her room. He agreed to check it out before wiping off her smiling face. Zenith watched, staring at them both intently. I hate this stuff. There's something I want to show you. Can you come back to my room later? It was a very suggestive line. Being a very precocious kid. I like how she asks, can you come look at something in my room? And he goes, yeah, sure, that's fine. And then she does it again. Like, okay, he agreed to come to my room. Okay, let me start this right. Will you come to my room? I got something to show you. It was likely that if he went to her room, that she'd lift up her skirt, showing him everything. But maybe not. They'd already taken baths together. It wasn't like there was anything there. It was a secret. She's pretty much showing him everything already. But like I said earlier, there's something different in how you present it. It's always in how you present it, Rudius. Still, she was so shameless that he had to worry about her future. We all know that you're her future, dude. He was thinking about how he might have to have a basic sex ed lesson for her at some point. However, she did say that Lilia had gone over all that stuff. Though, from Lilia, it was probably all nonsense. Yes, probably. He might actually have to step up to the plate. He arrived at Aisha's room later. She didn't specify at what time, so he kind of just came in there and started looking around. It was impressively tidy, with everything put in its proper place. Not a single speck of dust anywhere. Here and there, a few slightly girly touches. He noticed a stuffed toy on her bed. Light brown hair, a robe, a staff in hand. Maybe a magician. They didn't sell toys like that in the city. With Zenoba not having anything like this, he found it to be a rare find. Or maybe she made it herself. Surely not. Activate clueless protagonist mode. Switch has been turned on. How do you not know that's a freaking doll of you that she made? Come on, Rudius. How oblivious can you get, dude? It's obviously, it's a doll of you. This makes me wonder what she does with it when she's... Anyways, moving on. Don't think about it. You all thought about it. There was a few potted plants in her window. Tulip-like flowers, aloes, and a cactus. Compared to Norn's room, this was much more like what you expect from a girl's room. He then scurried over to her closet where he peeked inside. It was full of maid outfits. All obviously well used, patches here and there. She would grow out of them soon, unless Lilia had some way of modifying them somehow. Yeah, you're not supposed to modify them, that way they always stay the same skirt length. Shut up. In the far side of the closet was a cute frilly outfit. He assumed she may be saving it for a special occasion. If this was what she wanted to show him, he would have to pretend that he didn't see it. He's just kind of... Alright. Oh, drawers. He's just looking through everything. This is such a... This is such like a creepy Rudius moment. Like, he's not into his sister, which again is that block that's nice, but he's still not afraid of just going around and looking around in the girl's room. It's like, okay, I have the opportunity, I might as well do it. He closed the top part and opened up the drawers. Inside, there was neatly folded pantsu. A boy with a crush on her would find this to be the treasure trove. Next to them was a number of shirts and a few bras. She was well developed for her age, thus able to equip chest armor. Still, it was only a cup at the moment. The wise old hermit had already classified her as a rare gem in the making, but it was early days yet. He's still gonna size her up. He's still gonna size her up. Hearing a thump behind him, his heart skipped a beat. He got caught. Activating his eye of foresight and channeling mana into his both hands, he closed the drawer behind him and spun around. He pointed his finger towards the door, but no one was there. Aisha and Zenith were down at the garden still, and Lilia was making lunch. Maybe it was Dillo? No. He had tagged along with Roxy and was probably napping at the nearby stable there. I was like, what? I read the first part that Dillo went with Roxy, and I'm like, why would Dillo go with Roxy to the university? Like, he's like chilling inside of her classroom or something? Though apparently he just decided to go with her and then just kind of chilling at the stable, I guess. His horse, Matsukaze, that he bought before leaving for the Greyrat continent was in the stable in the city. Reese checked on him regularly, and there was no way that he could have made there on his own. That left Lucy, but she wasn't even crawling yet. Maybe a burglar? A pervert? Looking to steal Aisha's first bra? No, that's you, Rudius. That's you. He crouched down, looking around, but seeing nothing. His sharply honed intuition was telling him he wasn't alone. Maybe an invisible enemy with some implement of perfect camouflage? He muttered quietly. I guess we'll have to see who blinks first then. Hopefully, it wasn't just the house creaking. No, he could feel that something was there. He examined everything. Doors, doll, bed, potted plants? Was there more than before? As the sun emerged from behind the clouds, a plant in the smallest pot reacted instantly. It wiggled itself inside the sunbeam, twisting its leaves towards the window. He realized as it thumped in the windowsill, it was a sound that he heard a moment ago. What the heck is this thing? He gave it a poke, and it jerked like something like a surprise. After a moment, it leaned over to rub itself against his finger and twine a shoot around it. He pulled his finger away, and it promptly went back to bathing in the sun. A moving plant? Bizarre. Hopefully it wasn't going to start dancing around the room and bursting in song. That's what I immediately thought. I was like, are we doing a Groot character? Are we doing a Groot character? We got a Groot in this damn series. I don't care about Groot. I don't hate or like Groot. I never watched the show. Rudius knew what it was. It was a Triant. They were like the slime of this world, the most common and well-known monster of this world. On every continent that Rudius had traveled, he had found a Triant of some kind. The only continent he hadn't been to, unfortunately, was the Divine Continent. Still, that was 4 out of 5 of the major continents. Look, unfortunately... I mean, is there something that's good? I feel like this is one of those moments where he's like flagging himself like, man, yes, I finally get to go to the Divine Continent. And he goes there and it's not going to be a good thing. It's not going to be a good thing the moment he goes there because he said unfortunately right there. Most of them were made of wood. but not all look like walking trees. Yeah, I remember the ones on Demon Continent he was saying were like rocks. Stone Triants resembled big, lumpy tomatoes. Cactus Triants look like spiky green plants. He heard that Elder Triants were capable of using water magic, which just made me wonder. I kind of assumed that the one that he had fought in the forest to save Sarah was a Elder Triant, but it could just be like just a magic wielding one, because it was creating these ice blocks that were falling down on him, which made me assume that it was an Elder, because I thought that all Elder Triants used magic. But he's kind of implying here that he's never faced one before. Unless, again, because Volume 7 was technically light novel original, maybe they forgot to change that when they went to light novels. Still, he hadn't seen a Triant this small before. It was about 15 centimeters in height, about 20 if you counted its roots. It had 4 large leaves and 2 tendril-like shoots. Without flowers or fruit, it looked like it was a very young sapling. Reese decided to refer to it from this point on as Baby Triant. Aisha had arrived at the sound of his alarming cry. She claimed that it had suddenly started moving one day, shortly after he returned from his trip, to be precise. She thought it was pretty cool, looking proud at her pet. Can of worms. Why did it start moving the moment that he arrived? Question mark. Yes, you can maybe think that it's just the presence of a lot of mana, Rudius arriving there, and it's being affected by his mana being nearby it. But that would kind of assume that Rudius is almost kind of leaking some sort of mana to anything around him. And we really haven't given that indication before now. So what is the assumption that now is the possibility that it is affecting things around him? The other thought process I have is around Zenith. Again, my theory around the idea that Zenith wanted that one room, she kept going to that one room, was because she felt like something was there that was possibly pulling away bad mana, because maybe she has some sort of mana sickness and it's pulling that mana away from her. There's an implement or something in there. So the question mark is Aisha's room right next to that room? And maybe possibly it's being affected by Zenith? Again, very, very loose theories here, but we'll go with it. It wouldn't be Mushoku Monday without Andrew making really dumb claims. Yeah, it really is something. Why didn't you tell me about this, though? I wanted to, but you've been so busy lately, you know? I thought it could wait for a while. And now you went off and found it on your own. She puffed her cheek. It was adorable. Well, anyways, I can't believe one of those seeds I brought back was actually a Triant. What are the odds of that? Huh? No. I'm pretty sure that it grew from a Vethra seed that we got back in Asura. Oh, really? Yeah, it's got leaves and tendrils, see? It should get some nice purple flowers before too long. I was just joking. Refugin, Refugin that's watching me from the past. I was just joking. Aisha growing. I mentioned the idea that Aisha was growing plants in her room, and I was saying, yeah, that's where all the illegal stuff is. All the contraband that she's creating in her bedroom. And sure enough, that plant, yes, the one that creates the aphrodisiac, the one that makes the Luke juice. She's growing it. And watch, Aisha's the one that figures out how to make it. Because yes, the whole problem with the whole aphrodisiac, that yes, we call Luke juice as a joke, it was created in a town in Asura that was destroyed with the displacement incident. And since they had a monopoly on how to create it, once that was gone, nobody knew how to make it. The plant apparently is still there. The seed is still there. You can get the seed and you could still have the plant, but nobody knows how to turn that into the aphrodisiac. And yes, fully expecting right now, I don't know if it's her intention right now, but if she's seen that seed and was like, I need to get with Rudius, and she grabs that seed and goes, I can make something, I'll get him hot and bothered, and then he's all mine. I have no doubt in my mind right now she's trying to make that. She wants to make that aphrodisiac so she can get him to... She totally wants him, and she's trying to make an aphrodisiac for him just to get a night with him. No doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. So we have a horny Groot. We have a horny Groot. An aphrodisiac making Triant is in Aisha's room. Oh, this is so wrong. Anyways, he recognized the name of that plant. Its flowers were a primary ingredient to the powerful aphrodisiac. It could also be used for certain perfumes. They were cultivated in certain parts of the Asura kingdom. But all that didn't explain why this one turned into a Triant, though. It's all about mana. Again, this kind of builds on my theory on the idea that it has something to do with Rudius or Zenith. One of the two of them is essentially giving out mana. Because how are monsters created? Monsters are created by a buildup of mana. And this mana corrupts the animals and turns them into monsters. So how do you turn a plant into a monster? You give it mana. You have this mana that's present there that affects it somehow. And if it's a small seedling, it probably doesn't take much to affect it. Now, why only that plant? That's a big question mark. He starts to get into his theories why, but I think it's strictly mana. Mana has created this Triant. Rudeus or Zenith is giving off something that is modifying things around them, which makes you scared for Dillo. Don't turn, technically, again, he kind of mentioned the idea later on that Dillo is technically what should be classified as a monster, but not really, because it's been domesticated. What made it start moving anyways? Was it like that from the start? Nope, it was a plant first. It started moving when I moved it to this pot. Aisha explained that she started her flowers in the garden, then she moved them into the pots. Once they were big enough, she moved them back to the yard. She was experimenting at the moment, which is why the pots inside were also different. This is kind of a credit to Aisha herself. She wants to have plants and flowers, but the problem that they have is the environment they are is in the north. It's very cold, and so naturally a lot of plants don't really live long in this area. So she's trying to experiment in order to grow them. The pots were perfectly ordinary ones that they bought from the general store, so it was unlikely that they were magic items or enchanted. She also didn't do anything weird or unique to it, using the soil that he made for her because it had more nutrients in it. So that ruled out the soil because it was ordinary dirt that he made with magic, which I would argue that's not really ordinary, but I guess. Though he admit that he probably put a touch of affection in for his little sister there. But that wasn't relevant. Oh wait, sometimes I gave it leftover water from the bath, I guess. There's the other possibility there. He thought to himself, leftover bath water? He wasn't around at the time, so it would have been infused with Sylphie, Aisha, or maybe Nanahoshi sweat. Intriguing. You can see how that might lead to growing gropey tentacles. Okay, Rudeus, stop being an idiot. No, it's technically... Maybe, again, I think it's a mana. I think it's a mana because, again, it happened when he got there. Considering everything, the only option was the Triant seed got mixed in with the other ones. Being that Triants were naturally mimics, maybe it pretended to be a normal plant. Well, in any case, I guess we should kill the thing. Maybe it can just burn it or something. Why? No, why? I spent all this time raising this little guy. Why would you burn him? He was taken aback by her fierce objection. She did bring him here to show it off. It made sense that she wouldn't be happy about getting rid of it. Aisha, you know what this thing is, right? It's a Triant. That's a kind of monster. But how little it is, it's adorable. Yeah, for the moment, but once it gets bigger, it might start attacking people. It's dangerous. I'll train him. I'll make sure he doesn't hurt anyone. She clinged to Rudeus' waist, desperately, tears in her eyes. He was tempted to just let it be, but this was no stray kitten. It was a monster. Yeah, I think that's a difficulty that, like, every parent faces. I mean, granted, with a lot of areas that you live in, you can't have, or at least easily have, something that's dangerous. It's typically going to be a house pet or something like that. But even with a house pet, sometimes it's difficult because they might be feral or they might bite somebody and you have to get rid of them. And children have the mindset of, I can fix it. Like, we just, give it love. Why do we have to get rid of it? But your fear is the idea of, I mean, that's what every parent that has an infant fears. The dog might bite the child, and the child being so frail and so small, a bite can be just extremely deadly. Come on, Rudeus, can't I keep it, please? The puppy dog eyes aren't going to work on me. We need to get rid of it. But he's a good boy, really. He's nice to everyone, and he does whatever I tell him. Now you're just making stuff up, Aisha. How is a Triant gonna do what you tell it? It doesn't even have ears. Look. She trotted over to the baby Triant, reaching out her hand. It slipped its tendrils around her index finger as she gently rubbed the underside of its leaves. The baby Triant twisted its body around in a look of pleasure. It was a bizarre sight, but it was like the plant was reacting like an animal. Okay, let's go. The Triant coiled around her finger. Which one is the pinky finger? After a moment of hesitation, the tendrils slipped around her pinky. Then she commanded the middle finger, thumb, and then let go. It followed each command. See? It listens to what I tell it, right? Yeah, it looks that way. It was possible to communicate to it, and it was attached to Aisha. He needed to rethink things. Triants disguised themselves and attacked travelers, but he knew of some kind of monsters that were domesticated. Dilla was a type of creature that was used for travel, and not thought of as monsters. People generally called them beasts. Nothing separated them from monsters other than their temperament. With a baby Triant being tame enough, maybe it didn't have to be classified as a monster. It wasn't that threatening, and Dilla could do more damage if it wanted to. That said, Dilla was domesticated and trained by a professional beast trainer. Look, I'm a little worried that thing's gonna strangle you while you're sleeping. I think you should be fine, Rudeus. Even full grown, Vatter's plants only get about twice as big. Okay, but if it hurts anyone ever, I'll do as you say, I promise. What if you get seriously injured the first time it attacks, though? She growled and puffed her cheeks sulkily. Then, she seemed to reconsider her strategy. Uh-oh. Danger. I kind of expected right here, Rudeus is like, and my alarms went off. Alarms are going off. Rudeus, retreat. Rudeus, retreat. Opening her eyes real wide, lacing her hands together in front of her chest, she looked up at Rudeus with a most sweet and innocent expression. Please, Rudeus, can't you give me a chance? Where did she learn to play like that? Lilia. He was tempted to pursue the point, but there was more pressing matters at hand. I guess it could be You know what? Every time something like this comes up, I immediately think Lilia. It's always Lilia. Lilia's taught her all this stuff. But now there's a side of me that's like, now it could technically be Ariel. She has met Ariel. I don't know how often she's meeting with her. Thinking about it again, he never heard of domesticating a Triant. He didn't know much about their behavior. So he didn't know the best way to train one. They were dangerous, while weak. If they mess this up slightly, things could turn ugly real fast. Again, that's that whole fear aspect that it only takes once. And yes, you can readjust once that one time happens, but at what cost? How much damage is done? Then again, it was tiny and raised with people around. It should be less likely to attack anyone if it was like most animals. All right then, if that's how you're gonna be, maybe I should just play my trump card. Your trump card? Run, Rudius. Run, Rudius. Why don't I tell Sylphie and Roxy about your little secret? What are you talking about? A secret? Nothing came to mind. I'm talking about the secret room in the basement. It got him. She got him. If anybody's gonna find that room, it'll be Aisha. She's clever. She's a genius. And she's cleaning everything. Everyone had a part of themselves they wanted to keep private. In his case, it was his altar. Even though he showed it to two beast folk. The place he only visited at night to offer prayer while others slumbered. His goddess was now physically in his house, but that didn't make his ritual any less meaningful. Faith has no value in and of itself. The act of prayer calms us and centers us, helping us live each day to the fullest. Keeping up this routine for years now, it was a part of his life. This is actually a very interesting little segment right here. Something that you can easily probably read over and not really think much about it, but that is technically a great point. This is something that Rudius has been doing ever since he first went to the northern region. At least it never indicated it before then. He made the altar at that point. Roxy was essentially keep giving him comfort, and he started to praise her as a goddess. And this was his holy relic. That was the point that he made the altar, and he started praying to it every single night. And this has become a routine for him. It's not just the aspect of doing this for the sake of his goddess. This is something that's for him. He was doing this for him. As he kind of puts it, it's a really interesting way. It calms them, centers us. It gets you on focus. It becomes a routine that kind of keeps him straight. It pulls a lot of his discomfort out of him because this is the thing that he kind of knows is going to help him. This helped me. I got to keep doing it. And every time I do it, it helps me. It feeds itself. It's creating this cycle in himself that is self-fulfilling in a way. I guess the best way for me to explain it. And as he notes, even though the goddess herself is in my house, he's sleeping with her. He's still praying to it because it's his routine. It is his daily cycle. And he can't break from it because it's become such a part of him. Honestly, it was really kind of fascinating, the idea that he was still visiting it on a nightly basis. When he mentioned it earlier, after Roxy got there, that he went down there and prayed to it, it's like, wait, but Roxy's there. But then note, that was the first time they ever noted that also in there was the divine spirit of Sylphie. Sylphie's in there too, and he's praying at it too. This is something that is a part of him. He can't shake it. It is his religion. It is his belief. If he were to go ask Cliff, hey, what if Millis suddenly came into your home? Would you still pray to Millis? He would, because it's his religion. It is his way of connecting to his God. Even though he could talk to it right in front of him, it's still a part of him. It's still something that he does. There is a healing and guiding aspect of having something to rely on, something that is above you, that you feel like can have its divine touch in your life. And it's what Rudius has found here. What would happen if they discovered this? What would Roxy and Sylphie think? Lilia would understand, but what about Norn? Norn would probably react in disgust. The outcome would likely be the destruction of his altar. They would come after my altar. They would destroy it. And with it, a crucial part of his daily routine. Again, he can't finish his day without it. Even though he was technically doing it when he wasn't at home, this is his routine. Which I'm actually surprised that he never mentions the altar when he's out traveling. Unless he had them with him. I don't think he ever mentioned that he had those with him. Which is probably what was partial why he broke so much. Honestly, that's partly why he wasn't able to keep himself centered. Aisha, listen, I'm just worried about your safety, okay? Triants are dangerous monsters, so raising one might put you at risk. I don't care if you're a total pervert, Rudius, but I wonder how Roxy and Sylphie would feel about it. Especially Roxy. You've been worshipping her panties for a long time now, haven't you? She was ruthless. While he was trying to watch out for her, she was blackmailing him. He didn't know what to do. What was the least bad option? As he racked his brain, Aisha's door swung open behind them. I think I heard my name just now. Did you need something? Aisha and Rudius spun around to find Roxy standing at the door, looking nonplussed. What are you doing here, Roxy? Didn't you leave a little while ago? I came back to get something I forgot. Fortunately, I don't have class at the moment. Classic Roxy, the forgetful little professor. How cute. Wait, he had to stay focused. She's so klutzy. It's like a turnaround like, oh crap. What are you doing here? Oh God, she's so cute. Aisha spoke up. Well, Roxy, Rudius and I were just talking about it. He cupped his hand around her mouth, panicking as to what to do. An awkward silence ensued. The only sound was the Triant's thumps. Roxy's eyes jumped to it before opening wide. Rudius thought, this is a good thing. Roxy's gonna take his side. She should know it's dangerous. Nope. Nope. That's a Triant, isn't it? Right, yeah. Aisha just told me that she wants to raise this thing as a pet. Triants are monsters, you know? It could be dangerous. Can you help me convince her to get rid of it? Aisha grabbed his hand, muffling in protest and trying to pry it away. He thought, foolish girl, you can't beat me in a contest of strength. Bite my fingers all you want. I won't let go. God, wait, don't lick them. Stop. That's funny, dirty. I can totally see this. Got his hand cupped around her mouth. Yeah, you can't do anything about it. She's like, should go for it. Oh, Aisha's so freaking great. Aisha is so freaking great. It's so a kid thing, too. I don't know, Rudy. I think it should be fine. Rudy was shocked that she was taking Aisha's side. Triants are loyal creatures if you raise them properly. And this one is rather small, too. There shouldn't be much danger to speak of. Wait, really? You could domesticate them? Sure, it doesn't seem to be very common on this continent, but the Maker tribe used Triants to scare away birds in the fields. Reese thought, oh, right. He did see something that looked like a piranha plant back in the fields. He didn't realize they were Triants, though. Yeah, that was what kind of immediately went to mind. That whole shot where Addis is looking at this big, massive thing, and she's like, oh, look, Rudius. And he's just he's too focused on what's going on with, technically Rowan and Roxy. Releasing Aisha, he apologized for being wrong about it. After looking dubiously for a moment, she smiled in relief. That's okay, Rudy. You were just worried about me, right? Yeah, of course. You have to admit, raising a monster sounds like it could be dangerous. Okay then, I guess I'll keep quiet after all. Thanks, Aisha. Remind me to buy you a nice meal one of these days. Will do. Aisha spun around and promptly ran to Roxy, throwing her arms around her. Thank you, big sis. I love you. You're welcome, I suppose. Roxy accepted the hug, looking perplexed as ever. Big sis Roxy. I totally dig this. Aisha and Roxy. Two of my favorite characters. I love that. But yes, for now, Rudius will keep his shrine a secret. Even though now Aisha knows about it. I wonder how long she's known about it. That's the other question mark. How long has she been keeping it a secret? And again, I think it's something that she wants to keep a secret for his sake because it's Rudius and she adores him. But it makes me wonder if she'll ever pull that card again later. Again, wanting to give him service. Rudius, let me sleep with you. Otherwise, I'll tell them about your shrine. Oh gosh, this is bad. Aisha's baby Triant became the house's second pet. Rudius established many rules. The important ones were, if it hurt anyone, he'd get rid of it. Aisha needed to thoroughly train it to not attack anyone. Aisha had to explain to everyone what kind of plant it was. And Aisha wasn't going to let it near any babies. Note, plural, babies. I guess it technically could be like if anybody brings a baby nearby, I guess. She accepted each of these while Rudius went to lecture mode, nodding in agreement without so much as a scowl. Rudius ended up naming it Bite, picking the letters from baby and Triant. Hopefully be a trustworthy and helpful member of the family. Rudius already pictured him defending the rice crops from predators. Still, he wondered, how the hell did that little girl find his secret altar? He had to keep an eye on these maids. In Legends of the University number 4, the boss tamed monster living in his house. And that is chapter 4. I was actually hoping to get to chapter 5 in this recording, but it's already going a little bit long. But yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Fun stuff around Aisha. And yes, technically still bring up a lot of question marks around relationships and everything. I think both this chapter and the previous chapter is, these are my sisters, and this is the relationship they have with both me and those around them. And again, really bringing up question marks around Paul, Zenith, Lilia, and pretty much the aftermath of everything that happened. So good stuff, though. Really nice way to kind of establish what's going on with the sisters. And yes, my prediction that Aisha will eventually have a bottle of Luke juice. It's totally going to happen. I can swear it's totally going to happen. I mean, yes, technically, if you want to just kind of scurry that to the side, it could just be strictly for the perfume aspect. Her being very girly. I could totally see her wanting to create some sort of perfumes. Maybe the idea of using those leaves to create perfumes is a much easier and less guarded secret, then possibly she can make that kind of stuff. Because again, Aisha likes the girly stuff, so she would want something like that. There is something to be said about the aspect of Roxy herself, because honestly, Roxy is sort of the outsider. And we'll get into it with, I think, the next chapter, maybe it's the following chapter. This aspect of sort of seeing slowly as Roxy is being brought into the family. Because yes, while the Greyrat family, their situation is really screwed up, everybody being separated from each other with the displacement incident, the aspect of losing one of the family members, there is a lot of issues within his family. Rudius learning that he actually loves them. This idea of him actually becoming a family member. The idea of what Aisha thinks of Paul and Zenith, or the idea of what Norn thinks of Zenith. Sylphie even had time with them back in Buena Village. But Roxy's different. Roxy is the outsider coming in. Yes, she had a relationship with Paul and Zenith, and maybe even Lilia, but she is sort of an outsider. And so now she's happened to be welcomed into people that never met her before. Norn, Aisha, and how they'll possibly accept her. And this is like one of those nice little moments where Aisha is... this pet that she has was saved by Roxy. So of course this is sort of winning points for Aisha with Roxy. Roxy got to level up right here. Not to say that Aisha is in love with Roxy now, but at least this is one thing that has shown her Roxy's on my side. Thank you so much, Roxy. So I'm curious at what point that might be for Norn as well. Maybe she will end up teaching a class for Norn or something, some way for her to connect to Norn and that family. Because again, back when Roxy was with them in a village, Norn and Aisha were not born yet. Now, yes, Roxy was with Norn and Aisha as they traveled from Milshin all the way to the port, but I don't see her really connecting much with them at that time. So I'll be really curious to see how we make those connections going forward. My big question mark really around the Triant is this as big as it's going to get? They're saying that it might get maybe twice as big, but that is if it's mimicking that plant and it can actually be bigger. It might be only mimicking it right now in order to protect itself, and maybe if it sees something else, it might grow larger. I'll be curious if at some point they'll end up having this massive Triant sitting in their garden, just swatting away things. And yes, if the local government's going to be okay with that. Again, this is Rudius. He might be able to pull some strings or maybe have Ariel pull some strings, but I don't think many people in the area are going to be okay with having this monster sitting in this garden. Even if Rudius and Roxy and Aisha have accepted it, I'd say the neighborhood does. But yeah, cool once again to see Aisha doing her usual blackmailing, controlling methods in order to get what she wants. She's crafty. She's a genius crafter. But I really did love in this chapter seeing at least that Aisha and Zenith have kind of connected. We'll see it in the following chapters, but I love this aspect that, yes, slowly we're seeing changes in Zenith, but it's just kind of this normality for her that when she sees Aisha out in the garden, she's drawn to it. As he kind of puts this idea that, yeah, technically back in Buena Village, she took a lot of heart in her garden. We've seen that especially with the anime, how she gets all super mad when Roxy blows up the tree. This is something that she always dealt with. This is something that she always kind of kept, put together. This was pretty much her hobby. Outside of taking care of her children, this was the only other thing that we got a glimpse of. This was something that she did, something that she took pride in. So yeah, obviously, she knows a lot about it. She's going to take part in it. But, yes, taking note here, her ability to do it really well. Aisha notes the idea that she's better at it than I am. Again, that sign that she has memories there. She has knowledge of how this works. It pretty much blows away that concept that Rudius initially thought of and Lilia thought of. She was blank. She was a husk. No, she's not a husk. That is absolutely confirmed at this point. She's feeding Norn. She grabbed the breastplate. She's doing normal tasks. These are things that you don't just immediately peek at. If she was a blank slate, Lilia teaching her to do different things, like going to the bathroom by herself, all those kind of things, those would take a massive amount of time. If you think about it, a child takes forever to potty train. And children are like sponges. They learn things a lot faster than adults. That's like the teaching an old dog new tricks. It's not just the fact they're stuck in their ways. It's a factor that they can't learn it. It's hard to learn as you get older. It's harder for your mind to retain things as you get older. Learning a new skill or a new trade is very difficult when you get older. So Zenith just learning how to do these things is not the case. She's not learning how to do these tasks. It's not that she's learning how to weed the garden with Aisha. She has known all these things. These are knowledge and memory that is in there that, like I said before, is probably just an aspect of having to reconnect them. Or like I was predicting, this idea of that fog being removed. My prediction around that one room that she's going to is because there's something there, a magical implement or something that's drawing this fog out of her mind. Because a lot of mind problems, a lot of diseases is just a fog that creates. I've had it explained to me that it's like, you know it's there, there's something blocking it. There's a fog that's blocking you from getting to it. So maybe that fog's just being removed and those connections are being reestablished. And so she knows it perfectly. She's not a husk having to relearn things. She's just broken and that fog or those connections are being remade, which is a great thing. Because what that tells me is that she knows her family. She knows who Norn is. She knows who Brutus is. She just can't say what she needs to say, and she can't figure out why she knows them. But once that's fixed, it means that she can go back to her old self rather than build a new self. And that, for anybody with somebody with a family member that has done that, has gone through that, means so much. It means so much that you have the possibility that not that you're rebuilding a family member, that you're just fixing them. Which I've personally dealt with both of those. I've dealt with a decay to the point where they lose themselves and they never can get it back. And I've dealt with those that have just lost connections in their brain they have to reestablish. But their memory and their self is still there. They still know that you are family to them. And if I can choose one or the other, for damn sure it's going to be the one where I can actually reestablish those relationships with them. But anyways, before I start making myself cry, stop, move on. But yeah, good stuff overall. But yeah, I want to call it there. Thank you guys so much for dropping by for this Mushoku Mondays. It was a lot of fun. Thank you guys so much. Thanks to all the chatters out there. Hey chat, make sure to hit that like button before you leave. Additionally, greatly appreciate all of your guys' support, all of your kind words, all the super chats, all of the memberships, all the membership gifts, which we had another crazy batch of in this last Mushoku Monday. Once again, Nicholas, Noah, you guys are fantastic. It means so much to me. You guys are amazing. Just could not do this without you guys and everybody else's support. It means so much to me. But and yeah, until the next Mushoku Mondays, y'all take care. After running, he had gone over. After running, he had gone over. After running, he had gone over. After running, he went. After running, he went. After running, he had gone into some. After running, he went. After running, he had gone into some. After running, he went. After running, he had gone. Paul had started smacking him around early in his session. Paul had started smacking him around early in their sessions. Paul had started smacking him around early in their session. He figured they may just be onlookers. He figured they figured that they were just onlookers or just loitering. Why are you bullying Norn? Why are you bullying Norn? Norn's never even held a sword before. On another note, what rules is your club? On another note, what is your group? On another note, what rules has your club agreed on so far? Aisha didn't bite her lip. Beyond a brick divider was a patch of. Beyond a brick divider was a patch. Beyond a brick divider was a dry patch with. Beyond a brick divider was a dry patch with. Beyond a brick divider was a dry patch with seeds of rice. Beyond a brick divider was a dry patch with the seeds. Why can't I say this? Beyond a brick divider was a dry patch with the rice seeds. He could see how that might lead to a growing globe. He could see how that might lead to a growing gropey tentacles. He could see how that might lead to growing. Look, I'm a little worried the thing might strangle you in the. Look, I'm a little. Every moment the pot thumped slightly. Every time the pot thumped in the windowsill, it was a sound.